Welcome back, everybody, to Talk of the Now podcast. And I've got an interview today with a gentleman that I've wanted to have on for a while who I've followed on YouTube. He has a great YouTube channel called Den of Tools. Mr. Jeff King. Mr. Jeff, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you. Jeff has so much on his website, so much on his Facebook, so much on the YouTube channel. Jeff, I was wondering if you could kind of tell us, in my opinion, you do a lot with tools, buying tools, kind of the whole review of tools, all that great stuff that I'm into. And a lot of the times when I interview people, I like to do interviews with people that some of my audience may not have seen before or have understanding about certain things. For instance, I did an interview with a 2D animator one time. And so I think that that gives them kind of a little idea what that's about. And I think there are a lot of people out there that don't know a lot about tools or how to use them, for instance. And so I thought that would be great to have you on for that sort of thing. Um, so I guess if we could maybe start with tell us a little bit about your background, how you grew up and your story and what led you to where you are nowadays.
Well, I grew up mostly in the Midwest and kind of a what I consider to be a typical Midwest kind of thing.
Hmm.
My grandfathers on both my parents' side were into tools. My grandfather on my father's side actually built houses for years. Like he started back when power tools were the new thing on the job site. Um, and this was back in Iowa. My grandfather was more like your typical,
Nice.
really meticulous kind of homeowner. I mean, like his yard was everything, and he had a garage full of Craftsman tools. And in fact, I often admit that I am kind of a Craftsman fanboy just because back in the day when I grew up, that's what I thought, a real man had was a shop full of Craftsman tools. And then from there, trying to find my way in the world, I got offered a job doing construction. And it was working with a crew that was taking older houses in an area called Over the Rhine, which is in Cincinnati, Ohio. These are old townhouses and stuff, very German area, great architecture, stuff like that. But they've been pretty run down, and we would take them down to about 30% because anything more than 30%, and you had to get an architect involved and all sorts of permits and stuff, and it was basically considered new construction at that point. And the owner, it was a small crew, and the owner of the company, who was like my best friend's older brother, and his mother was in real estate, so that's where his background came from. So he'd buy a house, we'd go in, we'd gut it, we'd clean up the yard, we'd do everything, and then we'd rebuild it. So it was a lot of hats. It wasn't, I'd say it was a carpenter because carpentry was probably the largest chunk of what we did, but we did it all. We did demo, we roughed in electrical, then we'd have a electrician come out and actually, wire up all the boxes. You could do that much. Still didn't do a lot with plumbing, but everything else from the landscaping to the roofing to the siding to rough framing, finished framing, installing cabinetry, all of that. We did all that, and we'd do one house, then we'd move to the next house, and I did that for years. And then I had a weird transition. I on one of those jobs, I got introduced to a crew that was installing wiring for this new computer internet thing, and I found out how much they were making, and I'm like, that's the job I want to do. And yeah, I apologize. My garage door is getting opened right now, so if you can hear that, I apologize. But the so I moved over into what we now call low voltage electrical, doing Cat 5, Cat 6, and eventually running fiber. I did network builds across North America and the Caribbean, a lot of big companies, stuff like that. And that eventually moved into building server rooms, building Wi-Fi towers and stuff like that. And then eventually I got dragged into this terrible thing called management. Um, and stopped doing all the hands-on stuff and eventually transitioned, got recruited out to California and ended up in technology. And I came full circle when I finally bought my own house out there and started, fixing it up. And that's kind of how I got into doing the whole YouTube thing was I started reviewing and talking about the tools that we were buying to do just that.
Wow. Okay. So you have really come full circle in a lot of ways. getting into let me just I'll go backwards, but first off with the when you got into the YouTube thing, um what did your channel look like when you first got started?
Oh, well, my videos are still up. I didn't take them down. I wanted to, but I
Yeah.
wanted other people to see that you don't start sounding like you know how to talk to a camera. Very few people start this, fully polished, ready to go with the whole nine yards. I uh I just wanted to start talking about the things that we had. I'd seen a lot of people. I'd heard about Harbor Freight, and I've been shopping at Harbor Freight for a while, and I'd found that there were, yeah, a lot of junk tools. This is the old Harbor Freight, a lot of junk tools there, but they had some real diamonds in the rough. And I wanted to, there was a lot of people online who were like, oh, if you buy this, you don't really know what you're talking about. I'm like, well, I built houses, so I think I kind of know what I'm talking about. And I can use this tool as a homeowner and I can get some good stuff done. So that's what I wanted to do with the channel. I wanted to put this out there and help people in similar, homeowners, first time DIYers, stuff like that. People who are on a budget are like, look, you can buy these tools and you can still get some decent stuff done. And that was the real impetus behind starting my channel.
When when you first got started, like what year was that probably? Around
I think it was 2015.
2015. Okay, that was sort of I would assume that was the genesis of when this whole niche, if you will, of niche of tool reviews kind of got going, or would it not?
It was about then. There were some people
Mhm.
doing some stuff that was like there was one guy who was doing some welding content, and there had been some people who were in other areas that were doing like how to build like woodworking, like woodworkers. So there were a few of them doing this, but there was nobody focused specifically on the tools that I can think of.
Right, right.
Maybe
Cool.
AVE, he might have been around that time. I don't remember
Mhm.
exactly.
Yeah, my extent, I come from the automotive background of dad was a automotive restoration guy. Did a classic car restorations. And so I didn't really grow up, doing much in the way of carpentry. So my extent to learning it was always kind of this old house and ask this old house. And I'm sure that's for a lot of people, maybe you as well, and sometimes. But I mean, you obviously had more learning than I did, but um, I think YouTube has like carried that on to a next level thing, you know?
Oh, definitely. And in fact, when about a year into doing my channel, I incorporated an avatar of a 3D animated bear.
Uh,
And I did that. A lot of people thought I was trying to hide my identity, but I did that because
oh
I wanted
yeah,
to, I believe in what's this concept called edutainment, where people learn more if they're having fun. And it was really because of this old house, the back and forth between Norm and what's his name, that kind of banter. And that's what I wanted with that. It was supposed that was the idea
Bob Vila,
was,
yeah.
yeah, with Bob Vila that I was supposed to be, that the bear was supposed to be the Bob Vila and I was supposed to be the Norm being like, no, this is really how you do it. Uh, which is funny because then I had people commenting like, "Oh, this is a spoof off of what's the TV show that came afterwards that was a spoof off of This Old House," and just younger people who hadn't seen it, thought I was spoofing the newer show.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But no, This Old House, New Yankee Workshop, all that stuff were things that I grew up watching. A lot of the PBS stuff,
Hmm.
but then also on the automotive side, my father was actually a car salesman in Phoenix. He sold Fords, but his side job was buying and restoring old BMWs and Mercedes.
Oh wow.
So I did a lot of that as well.
Oh wow, yeah, yeah. There's a lot of crossover, I think, in those two industries. Especially when it comes to buying tools, when you get the few of the little the crossover tools, kind of like wrenches and the hand tools.
Yeah.
Um, when when you go back to the days, what age did you get out of like doing carpentry with the family gig?
Oh, well, I went out on my own, started working for this other crew when I was 18.
Hmm.
Actually, I might have been 17 because I started before high school ended. So, and then I did that for on off. It was because in the Midwest, it wasn't like these days, like when I lived out in California, they're doing construction year round. There wasn't much you could do in January and February. So a lot of people had multiple jobs, but I did that on and off for about 10 years.
Okay.
And then I did the wiring for another five. And in fact, there was a period where I was doing both.
Hmm.
But yeah, it was that's one thing. I've always been one of these guys who's always had more than one job.
Uh,
I would, in fact, when I was running wire, then at night, when as soon as we kick off, I'd go home, I'd take a shower, and I went to this place called Computer Renaissance that bought and sold used computers. And I would take used computers and, that barely worked, tear them apart, fix them, put new installs so they could sell them. And I just churned through those for 4 hours a night.
wow. And so when what age were you at moving to California when you got to that phase?
I moved to California. I think it was 30 when I moved to California.
Okay.
I'm 57 now, so my memory's getting a little fuzzier on that, but I think I remember my 30th birthday, and I'm pretty sure it was in California. It was
Uh-huh.
uh, because it was right after the whole 2000 thing when
Right.
everyone was worried about their computers were going to blow up because of
Oh
the
yeah.
numbers and stuff. So it was right after that I got recruited out there.
Yeah.
And it was just chaos at that point because that was the middle of the whole .com thing going on, and
Yeah.
they were throwing just ridiculous amounts of money at people, anybody who could come out and would actually show up for work.
Well, it sounded like you enjoyed the non-management side of doing that business when you were in it.
I do. I'll be honest. I enjoy both sides of it. The
Hmm.
management. It's to me in my mindset. I'm always a builder. I'm an engineer
Okay.
between my ears. I'm always looking at from the engineering mindset of how do I make this work. And whether you're building a house or building a car or building a company, it's all about isolating systems, doing the diagnostics to figure out what's not working, and then how do I replace that or bypass that? What tools do I need to put in place to make that work? And that's what I've really liked about all the jobs that I've had.
Okay. Nice. And I apologize too. I have kids, so if they run in or hear a screech, I try to mute my thing
It
here.
it
Uh,
happens.
but yeah. Um, well, that's really cool. I enjoy IT as well. I've gone so far as to get an A+ cert at one point. I'm not in the industry yet, but I do enjoy it, and I think there's some, speaking of crossovers, there's some things that are very similar in a lot of ways for those two. Even though you have two types of, I mean, growing up I can say for sure the automotive industry pe folks are not like the IT folks, but there's a crossover, you know.
There's a lot more like them. You'd be surprised. And I've often
Yeah.
called IT just corporate plumbing
Right.
because that's kind of the way you're treated. And
Uh-huh.
it's very similar mindsets between all of it. It's and I think that's probably why I succeeded at all of it was those that same kind of hands-on approach, and trying
Problem
to figure
solving.
stuff out and being able to use a tool.
Mhm.
The other half of it was also my ability to take complicated technical terms and make them understandable to non-technical people,
Right.
which got me jobs that other people couldn't. So
Hmm. Isn't that the key when it comes to I guess being I'm trying to think of how to say this. To saying things or being successful a lot of times is being able, like you said, to take complicated things and concepts and being able to say it in simple terms that a lot of people can understand.
well, it is, and it all comes down to communication. And I hate to say it, but my stepfather, who was a salesman, he was a salesman for a pharmaceutical company, and he worked his way all the way up to the very top levels of international pharmaceuticals. And he told me, I think I was 18. He was asking me what I wanted to do with my life, and I said, "Well, I know the one thing I don't want to be is I don't want to be a salesman." And he said, everything in life is sales. And it all comes down to communications and relationships. You have to be able to find a way to relate with the other person and build that kind of relationship through communication. And that's how you get the sale. And anything you want in life, You want the day off, you want a raise, you want a job, you want to borrow the car for the weekend. You're always trying to sell me on something and or sell somebody on something. And that's something that's really stuck with me is that being relatable is is one of the factors that's I think made me more successful than most people that I came up with, because people always felt like if there's a problem, I can always go to Jeff. He's not just going to understand, but he's going to empathize with me about what my pain point is and help me find a way to fix it.
Mhm. There's a lot to be said about how important, especially in our day and time of virtual relationships with it, social media, especially for young folks, I'm mainly talking to understanding the value of relationships and how they can work to your benefit and their benefit over a long period of time.
Yeah, especially even for people like me, I live in Livingston, Montana. It's a really small town. And it's not like there's a ton of people out there who are interested in the same kind of thing. So I have a really diverse set of skill sets. And trying to have those kind of relationships where I can talk to like-minded folks is pretty difficult. And this ability to communicate and keep these kind of relationships through the internet has been something that's helped me, even though as isolated as I am, working in my shop and my studio pretty much by myself. My wife was just here, but she's normally not. The kids normally aren't just me, but being able to communicate and relate with people helps keep you sane, if nothing
Yeah,
else.
yeah. Um, let's talk a little bit, if you don't mind, about tools.
Yeah.
When th these are some things that I came up with yesterday when I was thinking about talking to you. I know you talk about this on your website, so anybody listening should go over there and check out his YouTube page because he goes into these things. Can we talk about how um, we need to, I guess, look at, what I guess I'm trying to say is how you look at tools from a beginner standpoint, maybe a DIY person that kind of knows what they're doing enough to be dangerous like me, and you get things done around the house, to the person that might even want to go to the next level, make a little money doing it on the side, to even the guy that is the plumber and has been doing it for and knows exactly what he's doing. Like what
Well,
tool, how should they look at tools?
and this, I'm one of these folks that believes that everything should have a system to it.
Mm.
Everything I do in life, I'm German in origin, so having my systems is important to me. And one of the things I look at is the tool. You have to have. There's always the right tool for the job, but you can always spend more on tools. So there's an ROI involved on how much I spend versus what I'm going to get out of it. And I try to look at it as core tools you're going to use every day. These are the most important tools. There's usually three tools at most that you're just instinctively going to grab. Maybe it's a hammer, it's a screwdriver, or a power drill or something like that. Those are the ones that you should put a lot of importance on. Everything else past that, you have your what we call our secondary, tertiary level tools. You should be less focused on because there's something you only pick up every so often. So if you don't necessarily need a cordless heat gun, a corded heat gun for most people, a cheap corded heat gun for most people is going to be fine. So don't focus on that. But maybe getting a good Estwing hammer that you're going to swing every day or you're going to use for every single thing, that might be something that you might want to focus on. I know a lot of people talk about always, they just buy the cheapest level tools. And then when they break, they go out and replace it with something better because that means that they were using it a bunch. And that's maybe something that there's something to that. But I also, there's a certain level of joy and when picking up a tool that's well made, you'll know when you grab like a cheap hammer from Harbor Freight versus a $30 Estwing framing hammer. And yes, I'm an Estwing fanboy. You're going to immediately feel the difference in it, the thought in it, the construction, the engineering of it. You'll intuitively understand when you pick up that better tool, why it costs more and what it can do. But at the same time, yeah, it's and I put this because I also used to be a part-time firearms instructor. There are a lot of people who will spend money on a super high-end rifle to go hunting for deer. that deer that's 100 yards away and is just standing there. You don't need that $2,000 rifle for that when grandpa's 30-30 has been getting deer for decades. If it's if you're buying a tool that's better than you can use, at that point it's just a luxury item. And if you that's what you want, that's great. But focus on what you need first versus what you want, and then slowly build up that kind of tool pyramid from there. And if
Mhm.
you buy tools right, you can sit there and you go, okay, I bought this tool to get started with. Like table saws are a great one. I bought a table saw to get started with. I took it apart. I learned how it worked. I cleaned it up because of course I bought it used, cleaned it up, fixed it up. And then when I was ready and I could go past that table saw wasn't doing what I could do, I could then sell that table saw and use that to ladder up to the next level. That's what I always encourage people to do. Check your Facebook Marketplace first, find tools that you're going to get an ROI on, and be honest with yourself whether this is a need purchase or a want purchase.
Mhm. Um, Another thing that I think of as a homeowner now is a lot of times I will assess my skills as they come. In other words, when somebody accidentally hits a ball and it goes into drywall and punches it out. Well, it's time to learn how to do some drywall,
Yeah.
or if, for instance, the other day I accidentally bumped a lamp over and made it fall down on the floor. Well, it was time for me to learn how to put a new switch into the lamp and make it, work again. So therefore I needed to look at what sort of tools that I needed for that operation. I think that could be a good place for some people to start if you're a total beginner, I think. No, or I don't know what you would think about that.
Oh, there's a lot of cases where you buy the tool for the job, and you look at like if I have to, and there is a running meme on this, but if I have to pay somebody to come do this job, how much is it going to cost me to buy the tools and just do it myself? And then after that, I've got the tools and I have the skill set. If you have the time to do that, I recommend that everyone does that. For everything that I've done in my life, one of the things that I'm not good at, and I'll tell anybody, is plumbing. I haven't done a lot of plumbing. Well, our shower head it's one of these old school ones. The house here was built in 1880, and the shower head comes off the spout in the tub. And it was when we got the house, it was there, and it just broke off. And it's the kind of where it was actually made in place. So now I have to remove a spout, put a new shower head in. And of course, the guy who did it before caulked it to the wall, did all this stuff. So I'm going to have to learn how to do this. Never done it before. First place I went was YouTube to figure out what was going on. And
Right.
of course, the guy who installed it did it differently. And I'm having to figure all that out. But it again, I could hire somebody or I can spend some time, especially since I have kids, with my kids doing this so they learn the skill as well.
Yeah. And something I've learned, it's a hard lesson to learn, is that unless you're rich, sometimes you've just got to figure out how to figure out how to fix it on your own. Otherwise, you will spend money to the nth degree trying to keep your house up in maintenance, even if
Oh,
it's just a
houses and
small.
cars. I
Hmm.
mean, almost everything. I learned a lot from my dad about restoring BMWs and stuff, but I didn't even own a BMW until a few years ago when I finally bought one as just for fun. But almost everything else I ever learned about cars was because I was broke
Right.
and I had to fix it myself.
Yeah. I actually just went through that last week. I had to fix a key fob for my truck. It's an old Chevy truck. And it turned out to be the receiver modulator for the key fob. And I ended up having to get one from, I had no idea these things were even in there, where they were. So I had to figure out where they were, how to get them out. Got one from a used place because they're discontinued. I mean, a junkyard. And then I put
Yep.
it in there and finally got it work after trial and error with, programming it, and finally got it to work. But it was just a good example of how you have to be, like you said, you know, not everybody wants to be a problem solver, but you kind of have to be if you own a house, don't you?
Either that or rich, one of the two.
Yeah. Because, I mean, if you don't, you're going to have to pay somebody $75 to come out and look at it and then maybe fix it.
And it's amazing. Like people who don't own houses don't understand how much maintenance they really are just day to day, especially if you have a whole family living there.
Mhm.
There's always a doorknob getting broken, a light switch getting broken. the bathtub, the front door. That happened last winter. Up here in Montana, we every winter we get about 3 weeks where it doesn't get above zero, and our front door, the deadbolt seized
Wow.
in the locked position. I had to disassemble the whole thing just to get out of the house, and then come to find out it's a proprietary lock for a door that they don't like. That style isn't made anymore, and it's metal with a foam core, and it's not even for a residence. And so that's this. We've been getting by, but this spring, one of my projects is I'm going to have to replace not just the door but the whole frame.
Wow.
And it's again, I make enough money that I could, these days I could pay someone to come out and do it, but I don't have an excuse because I have all the tools.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Yep. Yep.
and
I,
again, it's another chance for me to teach my kids those skills.
a lesson that I had about 2 years ago is I built my own fence in my backyard. It's a wooden privacy fence, and I've never done anything on that scale at all. I mean, so it's over 400 square feet, and it was a challenge. And I had some people who were like, "You're going to do what?" But actually getting out there, it was a great lesson. I mean, it was a hard lesson. It took me 2.5 months or so part time to get it done. But the lessons that I learned out of it, I almost felt like I could go to a fencing team after I got done with it.
Yeah.
You know. Um, okay, well, let me ask you this then. All right, so when you and I were growing up, 80s, 90s, and whatnot, your beginner tool guy or girl, they would where would you go? You'd go to Sears and you'd get that beginner tool set, right? The 100 piece one or
Sears
whatever.
or Ace, those were the two places.
Yeah. So what nowadays might you advise people that want to do that? You got like an 18-year-old, a 25-year-old college grad, and they want to get that first 100 piece tool set. What are some good ones for them to look at?
Well, again, it's are you're looking it's right tool for the right job. Are
Mm,
you looking mechanics tools? Are you looking general construction tools? Either way, honestly, and a lot of people are going to hate me for saying this, and I get lots of people who think that I'm sponsored by Harbor Freight and such, and I'm not, never taking a dollar from them. But Harbor Freight has become the new Sears. They're easy to get into. They're all over the place. Their warranty is basically if it breaks, you bring it in, you slap it down. They tell you to grab another one. You're in and out in a couple minutes. No fuss, no muss. And that's what Sears used to be. Sears used to be you walked it in,
yeah,
smiling face was like, oh, yep, they're over there. Go grab another one. You
yeah.
walk up, usually have just like sign a little piece of paper and you're out, and that's it.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, Sears, we all know what happened to Sears. Uh, there's not really anybody else who's really picked up that spot. There's a lot of great local hardware stores.
Right.
And don't get me wrong, we've got one here, Riverside Hardware. Dan runs it, just salt of the earth guy. And the store it looks like a boutique. Like you're walked into, somebody should come up and ask you if you would like a cappuccino or something. It is a beautiful store, but he caters mostly to professionals, and he'll help you best he can, but he's not going to have all that entry level stuff. You can go to Ace, and our local Ace, and most Ace stores are locally run, locally owned franchises, so shop local when you can.
Right.
They're pretty good, but they're not quite that same level. And if you are, because I remember when I was on my own, I had no help. The second I left the house, I was on my own and I was struggling for a good bit of my life. And the cost difference between going to Ace and buying something at Ace versus going to Harbor Freight with a coupon is significant. That's the difference in dinner, maybe a couple dinners.
Yeah.
So I always recommend taking a look at your local Harbor Freight, look what's on sale, what you can get a coupon for, and then also maybe look online. Amazon has become a huge resource for people. And with their ability to take stuff back, it's not as quick. Like quite often when you need that tool, you need it now. So that's why I recommend, shopping local and shopping Harbor Freight when you can. But the third tier would be online.
Right. Yeah. No, I don't think that's far off at all. I mean, I don't know about you, but I do miss the days of going to the Sears during the Christmas time and almost feeling like you're
Oh
at Toys
yeah.
R Us just looking around.
Getting the
Uh,
Sears catalog.
yeah, that as well. Oh my gosh. Well, I'm only going to take about 5 more minutes of your time here, Jeff, but maybe we could dive into one more thing before we go. The maybe even ask you what something you would think when it comes to shopping for tools. Let's talk about the guy that's like me. I'm sort of becoming a little bit more of an aficionado, kind of, do I want the Milwaukee? Do I want the DeWalt, or should I just go with a Makita brand? What are some things, some principles for that type of mindset to think about when getting it? I mean, I'm sure it's very similar to what you've already said, but
Well, the first thing I'm going to say is corded tools are underrated. We have
I
all these
like that.
cordless lines out there,
Hmm.
and I like to joke, you'd be amazed the runtime you'll get out of a corded tool. All right.
Yeah,
Yeah. As long as you got yourself an extension cord, you can use those almost anywhere. They've got a ton of power, and cost wise, they're really good. And they're often what I refer to as a buy it for life kind of tool. This is a tool that you're going to have that's going to become, something that you can use again and again for years and years and years. If you're going to go into cordless, the problem there is you're really tying yourself into at least one line of tools. Now, I have,
great
I don't
point.
know if you guys can see, I've got every line of power tools out there, and I have banks of chargers and stuff like that. But I did a poll with my viewers, and I would say most people I know have about 3 lines of cordless tools. So it's not like you're completely dedicated to that,
Hmm.
but understand you are. The other thing is Milwaukee, DeWalt, Makita, Bosch. Those are all they're targeted at the pro level buyer, and they're great tools. And having them at home is fantastic. But understand they use these loss leaders to get you in the line. So when you see around like Black Friday, you see that drill driver combo that's super cheap, or Spring Black Friday, same deal. You get that, and again, they do the same thing. They look at that primary, secondary, and tertiary line of tools. You'll get great sales on those core tools. Those secondary tools later down the line, now you're tied into that line. When you sit there and you go, well, now I'm going to buy a sander, or I'm going to buy, one of these other tools. Those tools don't go on sale as often, and they don't go on sale for as much. And then when you get out there into the tertiary line, they don't have the entry level cheap stuff. You're only buying the top tier. All right. So like with Milwaukee, they have their brushed, their brushless, and their XR, or not XR, my bad, Fuel. I'm crossing over to DeWalt there. So you have your 3 levels. Well, when you get out to that secondary and third level of tools, they only have the Fuel line, and it rarely goes on sale. And so now you're paying top dollar for that. So that line that you're like, hey, if I buy it on sale, it's really not that much more expensive. It creeps up to becoming more expensive. And then buying those replacement batteries, because remember, batteries are consumables, that starts to add up too. But you, at the end of the day, are the one who have to make the decision. How much are you going to use it? And how much ROI are you going to get for it? And whether you're buying it for just the joy of having a great tool, because Milwaukee makes some of the best tools out there, or are you buying it because you think that's what the pros use and that you think that's what you need? And I've often said a story. I'm sorry, I know I'm going a little bit longer, but my next door neighbor here in town, his dad is the runs the installation carpentry firm for a major high-end jewelry store.
Mhm.
And so he's going in and doing just top of the line cabinetry work on all these jewelry stores. And everyone on his team either uses DeWalt or Milwaukee, except for him. He uses Ryobi.
Nice.
All right. And he's like, my guys give me a lot of grief, but he's like, it works for me. If this guy can build deluxe cabinetry for high-end, jewelry stores with a Ryobi, what's your excuse? That's all it comes down to.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Jeff, I do need to go, but I do want to one day I'll have you on again, maybe who knows when, just to maybe dig deeper into that stuff and dig deeper into like what to really nuance when you get into the tool buying
Yeah.
process and that sort of thing. But I really appreciate you coming on. It's been a pleasure having you.
Sorry it took so long to make this happen, but I'm glad I did.
No, that's great. I'm so glad that you carved out some of your time for me. I appreciate it. Have a great one. Thank you so much for coming on, sir.
You too. Take care.
All right, have a good one. Bye bye.